Hello, welcome to the Self-Evident Podcast. You got Mike. I hope everything is great for you guys. Y'all are doing well. Massey, he is off. He is on the road for a little bit. Mind you, we will be in Texas next week. So come out and visit us. Why not? Come have some fun. But thank you so much for tuning in, man. We've got one for you today. I'm not going to take too long on this, but I think it's important for us to talk about because Tim Walz is kind of an interesting guy. Let's put it that way. How do I say? I don't trust him. Now, maybe you do. Maybe you buy the shtick because that's basically what it is. Old football coach, Tim, man of the people, high school teacher, Tim. Mind you, when they talk about going to championships or whatever, he was an assistant coach. He was never a head coach. And isn't it funny that they bring this up, 25 years after the fact? He was governor since then, guys. Was in Congress since then, guys. Don't talk about that. Why not? We will get into it. I will tell you who he is, who he seems to be, and you can make the decision. Now, obviously, if you're listening to this, you've probably already made your decision, but just in case, because I think sometimes we think somebody is a certain way and we give them the benefit of the doubt. And then whenever something comes up, we say, well, no, you're being extreme. So I'm going to connect some dots for you and we'll see where we end up. Now, Massey and I do want to do one on Kamala Harris, and that one will be deeper dive, but I think that one's just as important as well for us to get into. So here's the start of all of it. Go to theselfevidenttruth.com. That's the start of it. Go to theselfevidenttruth.com. Get yourself some merch. Also, don't forget we've got the blogs, we've got resources, educational programs, that kind of stuff. If you're in Texas, go to our events page, check out where I'm going to be, where Massey's going to be. Follow along with us. So go to theselfevidenttruth.com by all means. And if not, at least give a like, a share, a hi. Let me know where you're at, where you're from. And let us know if there's anything you want us to cover. If there are bigger, deeper topics, by all means, we want to cover those things. And we do the research, we get into it, and we want to try and give you our perception of what's going on. Now, that being said, we're going to talk a little bit about this guy, Tim Walz. So is he a goofy former governor, former coach, or is he got a little too much love for communism? And just to point out, does anybody else notice Jesse Ventura standing behind him, clapping away like a goof? Anyways. All right. So as governor of Minnesota, in case you didn't know, Walz certainly left his mark on the state. Now, besides the obvious stuff that's happened, such as like the tampons in boys' restrooms that became mandatory, he also presented himself as in favor of the transgender movement, drag queen story hours, and all of that stuff. And everybody talks about how he dragged his feet during the George Floyd riots and took a rather love the smell of burning tires in the morning attitude. And his wife actually admitted that she had kept the windows open because the smell of the burning tires helped her to reflect on what was going on. This gives you a sense of who the people are. They like sniffing burning tires. Who knows? Maybe there's glue in bags somewhere. And in 6 years, this man, who I think maybe was sniffing a lot of burning tires, he took the state budget from $44 billion to $70 billion. While, leaking away a $19 billion surplus into a deficit. Seems like somebody who might like government spending. He raised taxes by $10 billion. He increased spending by 40%. He adopted California emission standards, which basically at that point don't even drive your car. You might as well ride your bike. And even then, you exhaling carbon dioxide is probably considered you causing climate change. Stop breathing. So he created more mandates and regulations, gave illegal drivers licenses, and lately we've been seeing some issues with migrants having driver's licenses if they're not used to the roads. Okay, I'm going to go there. We're having extensive reports of Haitian migrants not being able to drive very well in a place like Springfield, Ohio. And guess what? Now there's a town in Pennsylvania that has come out. There are about 2,000 people in that town. And mind you, the population has doubled with Haitian migrants. And these places are complaining that they don't know how to drive. Why would you give licenses to people whose road laws are extremely different? They're not familiar with our own system, our own structure. A lot of them probably can't even speak or read English. That's not a racist comment. That's just fact. That you probably have a lot of people that their main language is Creole and maybe they don't speak English. And you're going to unleash them on the roads. And to me, that's one of those, did you think this one through? And we all know they did and they didn't. But of course, Walz would support this. And Walz did support it in terms of giving driver's license to illegals. Now, he also made Minnesota a sanctuary state with a very thriving Somalian demographic, Ilhan Omar. Now, this is just an aside, and some people have pointed this out. I want you to decide. And if you're listening, just do a quick Google search. You can pause me. Go Google search it. Here's Minnesota's new flag. Drink it in. Take it in. And now, just let me present to you the Somali flag. Now, there have been people who have said, man, these seem kind of similar. I'm not making a judgment. I'm just presenting the facts. I'm just presenting facts. So you decide. You decide if this was a ploy to just kind of throw the arm around the massive Somali population that resides in Minnesota these days. Now, Walz failed in stopping a massive Feeding Our Future scandal. And there are accusations, obviously, of fraud and all of that. Well, now there's another Walz administration's program that is currently under FBI investigation, again, for fraud. Now, his state has lost more than 50,000 residents, which the IRS estimates means Minnesota lost $2.1 billion in income migration. People are leaving. Now, mind you, they're not moving to Florida. They're moving to Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska, the states around them. He kept the COVID emergency powers for over 400 days. He oversaw historic crime rates and did nothing about the defund the police movement. Those go hand in hand? How? He brought in the fifth highest taxes in the country and pretended to be a moderate, but really was anything but. And of course, the press protected him. Now, I don't know that that's even the biggest deal. You get what you pay for, you get what you expect, and with Walz, you know he's a Democrat, and he may have sold himself as a moderate, but he's kind of one of those guys that doesn't hide who he is. And so we're going to move to China because, of course, he's caught a lot of flack, and maybe you don't know the details about this, but maybe you're wondering, hey, what's this deal with China and Walz and all of that? And there are dots to connect that make you wonder, okay, what's really going on with this guy? He seems to have kind of a weird obsession with China. You may say, no, he just likes the country. Let me explain. So when he was a high school teacher in the 1990s, he was praising China to his students. And you may say, oh, he just thinks it's a good country. He said, it means that everyone is the same and everyone shares. Oh, we're not talking about the traditions and cultures of ancient China. We're talking about communism here. This was during a lesson he was giving on China's communist system in 1991. Again, I'll repeat, it means everyone is the same and everyone shares. The doctor and the construction worker make the same. The Chinese government and the place they work for provide housing and 14 kilograms or about 30 pounds of rice per month. They get food and housing. Now, Walz's remarks were reported in a 1991 article in Nebraska's Alliance Times-Herald that focused on his work on student exchange programs in China. And at that time, Walz was teaching social studies at a Nebraska high school. Here's part of the article. Now, Walz, you may remember not too long ago, he said, look, one person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. And you may say, okay, maybe he's watching from afar. Now, he's always been fascinated with communist China. It's kind of always been his thing. And so there was a profile about him in Nebraska's Star-Herald in 1994, and he reports as a child recalling seeing pictures of Mao Zedong hung in public places and carried in parades. Now, he first traveled to China in 1989. This was months after the Chinese Communist Party had the whole little Tiananmen Square thing that they don't like to talk about. They slaughtered people. He was there a couple of months after it. Now, he was a 25-year-old National Guardsman at the time and wrote to one of his old college professors that he was being treated like a king, which he was, and I'll get to that in a second. And that gets into the psychology of China knew who he was. And I want you to stop for a second. China is very careful about who is in their country and what is going on. You have a mid-20s military member, American military member, making trips to China. I have a hard time believing that they didn't know who he was or they weren't watching him. The security apparatus in China is pretty powerful. And especially during heightened times like 1989, and you've got a college-age American who has a military background and is a current military member walking around your streets. You're not going to flag him? You're not going to watch him? Now in China, Walz said that he received a salary that was double the pay of Chinese teachers. How's that communism for you? He was given a decorated apartment with a color TV, which obviously if he's describing this, it means, hey, I'm getting something other people aren't. And he had the only air conditioner residence on campus, the only one with an AC unit. They also threw him parties on his birthday and Christmas. Almost like they really want to ingratiate him. He said, no matter how long I live, I'll never be treated that well again. That's all it took, bud. AC and a color TV. He told the Times-Herald after arriving home, they gave me more gifts than I could bring home. It was an excellent experience. After returning to the U.S. in the early 1990s, he started leading trips to China for American high school students with support from the Chinese government. The trips were arranged by a friend of Walz's in China's Foreign Affairs Department. The Chinese government also provided some funding for the program, according to a 1993 article in the Star-Herald. Now, this Foreign Affairs Department, This is not a department that says, hey, we want to just collaborate with other cultures, and hey, we want to really respect and honor your culture, and we want you to bring democracy here and bring America's limited government ideas here. No, they're buttering you up, pal. And they won him over, it sounds like. It sounds like all it took was a little more pay, color TV, and an AC unit, and man, he was off to the races. China is just amazing. They're treating me so well. Guys, I just want you to know, I may have had to step over a starving person, but they paid me twice as much as the other teachers. So Walz and his wife Gwen, they held their wedding on and this is where it gets sick. Hey Barbara, great to see you. Thank you so much. This is where it gets sick. Walz and his wife Gwen held their wedding on the 5th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Gwen said her husband wanted to have a date he'll always remember. Here's my question. Let's say there was a date where you could pinpoint as that moment that 9/11, let's go that route. If I loved America, would it be wise for me, and would I think it useful to put my wedding on the date where my nation was attacked at the heart of it? Putting aside all who did it, who done it stuff. Just think. The man and his wife set their wedding anniversary on the date that people were slaughtered trying to protest for reforms of the government. Now, what that would be more akin to, what I think is going on, is that is more like, let's say, setting my wedding anniversary on V-Day, the day the Allies won World War II. If I did that, you might go, oh, that makes sense. It's a date of celebration. The war ended. We won the war. You might think, okay, cool. So put it up there. Is it just, oh, he just wanted to remember the date? Pick a better day. So instead of the day where the Communist Party trounced and obliterated people protesting for reform, maybe pick the day where there's a high achievement. But no, it was a high achievement for the Communist Party. I'm not done. They also spent their honeymoons in China. They founded a travel company, Educational Travel Adventures, Inc., which specialized in trips to China. And now the House is making some demands. So the House request includes this statement. As recently as this year, Mr. Walz met with the CCP Consul General Zhao Jian to discuss China-U.S. relations and subnational cooperation. Recent reports indicate Mr. Walz, while in Congress, helped secure over $2 million and pushed for a $5 million federal earmark for the Hormel Institute, which is a Minnesota-based medical research center with a history of working with the, drumroll please, Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. The Hormel Institute has also worked with the Beijing Genomics Institute, a group labeled by the Pentagon as a Chinese military company. The letter also says, while serving in Congress, Mr. Walz also served as a fellow at the Macau Polytechnic University, Chinese institution that characterizes itself as having a long-held devotion and love for the motherland. Mind you, it's a government-funded school, but, I mean, what schools really aren't in China? Walz also spoke alongside the president of the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries. It sounds so nice, so zen. Mind you, just as we learned in 1984, the book 1984, be very wary of the names that are given to things. The Inflation Reduction Act did nothing of the sort, right? The Patriot Act did not treat you like a patriot. Obamacare didn't really care about you. So when you get these names, the Ministry of Truth, what is it? Actually, well, we're trying to, squash truth. You look at this, something like People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries. A year later, the Department of State exposed the entity as a Beijing-based organization tasked with co-opting sub-national governments. Like a state government. To malignly influence state and local leaders to promote the People's Republic of China's global agenda. Now, Barbara, I hear you. Barbara says, wowza, on the China part of this. Yes, and it gets worse with Kamala. And this is why people have wondered why Walz was the pick. Now, you had a guy like Shapiro over in Pennsylvania. You had Mark Kelly out of Arizona. Either of those would have been good. Now, people said, well, Shapiro, look at his last name. Can't pick that. So I get that. Mark Kelly, man, that's a swing state. Why wouldn't you go that route? This makes sense to me. Because I don't believe that Walz is just a 30-trip guy because, hey, he likes the little drinks that they serve him down at the local restaurant. He ain't going for the beaches, folks. He ain't going for the palm trees. He's not going for the horseback ride through the meadows. He's not even going because he likes Chinese food. He is going because he has an appreciation for the nation, which is fine. But he seems very invested in government-approved, government-sanctioned, government-extended programs, agencies, assets. And the question that the House is asking, and they have every right to ask this question, yet the FBI seems to be stalling them on this, is how is it that a man of military service, National Guards member, and the House letter states most likely had access to classified information? I don't know what that would have been. It could have been as simple as just certain parts of his training, that kind of thing. China keeps letting him come back. Now, if you're China and you have this soldier who's America, and he just keeps popping up in your nation, at some point, aren't you going to give him a little guff? Walk him down to the station and talk to him? Investigate him, maybe deny him access at some point to the nation? No, Walz he gets the red carpet treatment. And if you pull back and look at this with a 30,000-foot view, what you're going to see is a communist nation that prides itself on its security apparatus and its ability to control the flow and the actions and socially engineer. I mean, that is what communism is. At the base of it is social engineering. It's how do we engineer people in this society for the greater good. They don't let that guy come back over and over and over and over. And they don't put roads in with him. They don't give him money. They don't help support his programs unless they know that he is a unofficial card-carrying member of what they're doing. I won't say Communist Party because card-carrying member of Communist Party actually means something deep. It's like being part of a cult. It's not, well, I registered as a Republican, so I guess I'm a Republican this year. The Communist Party is you're a diehard loyalist. You're a believer if you're allowed to be a card-carrying member. So it actually means something. Am I saying he's carrying a card? Not by any means. But I think he is a devoted lover of the Chinese Communist movement. There's just something there that doesn't make sense. It reeks. Now, if you look at Kamala and you just look at her as kind of dumb and no policies, doesn't know what she's doing, she kind of got swept up, all of that, you could say, oh, maybe it's just two weirdos. But if you add in what's going on with Kamala in terms of her history with Marxism and communism and her connections to the communist movement in San Francisco, which was really epicenter and still is epicenter of Chinese communist movement within America, you start to get a little bit different picture of what you're actually facing. I do not believe that Kamala did not put up policies because she forgot how to edit her website. To me, that was absolutely a move strategically because they know it is not about them. It's about Trump. And they're going to try and make it about Trump every single chance they get. What concerns me is the lack of policy says, what are you hiding? Now, she, in the past, against fracking, gun confiscations, raises taxes, Green New Deal, all of that stuff. And then all of a sudden, she, no, I never said that. And just wait. But it makes a lot more sense on why Walz was picked if he does have true blue ties or true red ties to the Communist Party. I'm not trying to be like everybody's a communist all over the place. But at some point, China is very strategic. They're a long game country. Us, we can't seem to think a week ahead. They think 50 years ahead, 100 years ahead. It stands to reason that they have built and worked and moved to set up people that are loyalists to them in the levers of power. And when we do our expose on Kamala Harris, and if you don't have time to wait for us, feel free to go to Trevor Loudon, who has done great work on Kamala Harris's background. But just a tiny bit, her father was a ardent, diehard Marxist professor at Stanford. She grew up around Marxism. She was in San Francisco, making connections. And some of those deep connections, what's the guy's name? Stephen Phillips. Ardent, deep Marxist. And if you look at his hands on Willie Brown's campaign, on her levers of power in the places she went, he was always in the background. At some point, you put two and two together and go, maybe there's something here. So I'm going to leave it at that. I just wanted to give you a little expose on who this guy is. And maybe you've got family members who are like, no, he's fine. Especially the old blue dog Democrats or the ones that aren't real in touch. And they look at him and they go, he's a football coach, assistant football coach. He's just, he's kind of doofy, but, have a beer with him. We need to know that the values and beliefs of America need to be actively defended. And if you have somebody who is absolutely antithetical in nature to the system of how America's government is supposed to run, aka the Constitution, if you've got somebody that is just ardently against that, ardently against individual sovereignty, ardently against classical capitalism, well, it stands to reason we should know. At least with Trump, you know what you're getting. You're getting an American first guy who's a little brash, who it's the economy stupid. He wants America's economy to roll forward. And all this Russian asset stuff is absolutely ludicrous. I think he's just too full of himself to be anybody's puppet like that. Now, on the other hand, the Harris-Walz ticket, there's something to it. So I want you to go ahead and share this with family members or friends if they've got a bit of an open mind. But if you look into Walz, and I'm going to leave it at this, if you look into Walz, there's something there that doesn't add up. And I'm not chasing after shadows. He has never denied his love for China. Of course, what they trot out, and this will be my last point on this, what they tend to trot out is, oh no, he's been critical of human rights abuses. You can still love the system and love what it stands for and be more loyal to it, yet every once in a while trot out a complaint. I mean, I love the Constitution. I love America, how the system is supposed to run. I love individual sovereignty. But I'd be willing to call out the crap. So don't use that argument that, oh, well, you know, he had complaints about human rights abuses. Denounce the Communist Party. Go for it, Tim. If you really are true-blooded American and you recognize that communism stands against everything America was founded on, denounce them. Or is your relationship a little too tight with them? You're in a little too deep. There's money flowing. Because if you're not, and you just love the nation, go ahead. Say, no, the human rights abuses from the Communist Party, yeah, the Communist Party is bad. It should be torn down. I love the nation of China, though. Say it. Because he won't. There's something there. All right. So I'm going to let this go. Guys, I love y'all. I hope you all have a great day. Do not forget to go to theselfevidenttruth.com. Check out the merch, blog, resources. You got all of that. Like, share, subscribe. If you like content like this, by all means, share it with other people. Let them know what you found. So, till next time, it is Friday, so y'all have a good weekend. Man, go out and enjoy. Enjoy. All right. I love y'all. Have a great day.